Thank you. Sally?
Thank you. Yes, the question didn't include the Legion Road property, but it has been mentioned, and so I strongly support selling, or actually we would be giving that property to DHIC for affordable housing, and you can read about that if you don't know about that. The Old Town Library, I was instrumental in getting the easement placed on it to Preservation North Carolina, and that turns out to be very handy now that we are seriously considering selling it, because that gives a lot of control over who buys it and what happens to the property. The Old Town Hall, wish I could answer that.
Ed?
My closing statement. Got it.
Okay. Sally's mentioned now 3 of the 10 properties on which the council got detailed analysis in June. There were dozens upon dozens of other little properties looked at. The 2 that you mentioned, Vicki, both are architecturally interesting. They both are considered by the volunteer consultants we used to have special community importance, particularly the Old Town Hall. And so I think we'd have to have an extended conversation about how to move them into the private sector. That's what we do. I like the idea of a public-private partnership.
Thank you very much. This time, let's start, well, let's see, we started with Ed. Let's start down here with George. And we're going to ask you a complicated question. I forgot to ask the audience to please write legibly because I'm wearing my bifocals tonight. So help me out here. The public has endorsed more density to avoid sprawl, but we still have a not in my backyard sound that erupts every time there's a multi-story project proposed for the town. Connectivity of roads helps to ease public transit and reduce trip times that are, with cars driving all around, and that's associated with greater density. How will you explain the relation between pro-density and pro-connectivity standards? And I know this from my own observations, having lived here since '91, that almost every project that has been proposed has been met with screams and howls of rejection. Not in my backyard, this is going to kill trees, this is going to do bad things, it's going to increase traffic. How do we, as I said to the mayor, how do we explain that not all growth is bad and is going to hurt us? And let's see, we're starting with George.
Well, first of all, I think the use of the word NIMBYism is overused. I think it's a natural reaction of any neighborhood to want to protect itself. And I think, when IFC was looking to open community house, a lot of that neighborhood was accused of NIMBYism, and at that time I said there wasn't a neighborhood in Chapel Hill that would welcome a transition homeless shelter. So I think in terms of, we need to educate people. We need to take the time to meet with the neighbors. We need to provide the data. We need to explain to them carefully the benefits. At the end of the day, we need to have alternative plans to protect the neighborhood if a project is approved and some of those fears come to fruition. I think most of the fears never do come to fruition, but we need alternative plans. And the most important thing is, I think council members need to use their best judgment to make a decision. And it isn't always going to be a popular one. It takes political courage sometimes. In the case of Community House, the council voted for that in spite of the fact there were 1,200 signatures on a petition against it.
Thank you. Sally?
Right, that was well put. I think one thing to remember is that Chapel 2020 process launched a new kind of planning. We are now going forward with a couple of focus area discussions, and there will be more. So that's the difference, say, between Central West and Obie Creek. Central West is a focus area, so there's a lot of discussion about what it should look like, and there is natural anxiety about that. But once we get that settled, then when the new development does come in, there will be a clear understanding of what should be there, and that should make things easier.
Okay, thank you. And Ed?
Well, I believe what we hear when new projects come in is expression of a justifiable fear of change. As I said, this as liberal as this part of North Carolina is, it is quite conservative about change in land use. And I believe in working early with folks involved who live near properties to figure out what issues are and how we can get to analyze issues and not stick with positions.
Thanks. Let's go to Lauren.
I also agree with George's analysis. I think NIMBYism is, like any sort of name calling, is not appropriate. Besides what George just said, I would just say that usually the neighbors come up with some real concerns which are important to address. And I know in a lot of the areas, the biggest issue is how to deal with increased transportation. And council has the responsibility to respond to that.
Thank you, and we're moving on to Gary.
Hi. Unfortunately, NIMBYism kind of fits this community. I've been gone to several Central West Committee meetings, and basically there's a lot of disagreement on it. So basically that holds true, but the thing is we got to educate people. We got to tell them why we're doing this. We're showing that it's going to help benefit them, but it should be done on a neighborhood by neighborhood situation where it's located.
Thanks, Maria.
I think the focus area process is a good way to educate the folks affected by the change. As we have seen in Central West, it has dragged on, and it has been very contentious. And I really, my hat's off to Amy and her co-chair, Michael Parker. And thank you for putting yourself out there. But I think that's the way to go. We have some important lessons that we have learned from it that we will apply in the future.
Thanks, Amy.
As Maria said, I'm one of the co-chairs of the Central West process, and I firmly believe that it's very important to involve neighbors upfront and early in these discussions. And I know that when you read the newspaper reports about what's going on there, there's a lot, the horse race and the controversy is played up. I just want to let everybody know that all of our decisions are made at least by supermajority, and that of the 8 neighbors who are on our committee, at least 4 and sometimes more are very strong proponents of the plans that we have talked about. These aren't the people who get covered in the newspaper as much, but we actually have a lot of support for the plan, which we will be showing to council soon, and I think it's actually a good plan and will really benefit the neighbors.
Thanks. DC?
I do believe in growth, but sustainable growth. I'm a fan of density and proximity. I feel as though if we actually provide more retail and grocery stores and things of that nature to our neighborhoods, closer to our neighborhoods, then the amount of traffic will be mitigated. By doing things of that nature, we won't have to worry about this increase of traffic or pollution or anything of that kind. But growth also involves expanding the amount of housing we have so people don't have to go out to Durham or Chatham to be able to work or live.
Thanks very much. And I know all of you have a little bit of note paper. If you do, like Lauren, want to make a rebuttal to something that's been said earlier, make a little note of it, and we will get back to everybody at the end and allow them time to say what they want to say about whatever they heard earlier. Okay? Fair enough? Let's start with Maria and ask, would you support consolidation of the town's many advisory boards? And would you consider a regulation or requirement that board members have some kind of qualifications or experience in the subject matter of that board in order to be a board member? And we're going to come back this way, Maria. After you finish, we'll come back this way, okay?
I do support consolidation of the boards. I have attended several of the meetings where we have discussed what the proposed boards would do. It has been very informative and exciting. It was sad that few people showed up for the discussions, but the discussions were very productive. I think we need to be careful about requiring expertise on boards. We need staff that has expertise. We have amazing staff in this town. But I think board members should reflect the interests of the community as broadly as we can. And we should not have to have an expert in transportation. You shouldn't have to be an expert in transportation to be elected, because then we might miss out on having some of the users of the service be part of the board, and that's really critically important.
Okay, Gary?
I think that Gene Peace did an excellent job on his planning of trying to consolidate the boards. I'm in favor of it. Expertise is necessary as well to be on the board, but I think, like like Maria said, town staff could be a big input as well. Because the town staff and the expertise will work together.
Okay, Lauren?
I also attended a lot of the meetings this summer. The consolidation right now is focusing on looking at development projects, and I think there is some rationale for reducing the number of boards that developers have to look at. But boards provide tremendous amount of information. I don't want that knowledge to be lost. In terms of expertise, I think that could be a criteria that council looks like when they make appointments, but it shouldn't be the only criteria. And if they have interest, they should also be considered.
Okay, and Ed?
I support consolidation, but in a hybrid way, so that we have standing committees available to work on the master plans the council community have adopted. We have community plans. The ones I'm tracking closest are Greenways and the oncoming bike plan. We have a major parks plan. We have a public arts plan, other ones like that. In other communities I watch, you have a standing committee to implement those plans, and that's what makes it work. I do believe in a certain level of expertise. I've recruited members over the years, and it does help to have some expertise, particularly on Community Design Commission.
Okay, thank you. Sally?
I'm looking forward to the council's discussion of this. I support the consolidation of boards in the interest of expediting, making faster our review process and for costing less staff money. I think it would be helpful for efficiencies there. We do have, as Ed alluded to, we have expertise that we require on Community Design Commission. I'm willing to look at a little bit more of that, perhaps some members of the planning, but not all members of the planning board. I think Chapel Hill is growing up and could benefit from some expertise, but I agree that not every member of the board should be recruited for special expertise.
Okay, George?
Yes, I support the consolidation of some of the advisory boards. I know it's been estimated that with staff's time savings that we might save as much as $500,000 a year. In terms of the criteria, I think it's great. We already have criteria for many of our board positions. The difficulty is it's often difficult to get citizens to volunteer. It's a major commitment of time, and in some cases, the citizens are worried about conflict of interest if they work in a particular industry that's going to be involved. So.
Okay, DC?
I agree with Sally in terms of consolidation, allowing for more efficient decision making in the town. However, as Maria and others have said, I'm a very big fan of the combination of some expertise, but just general citizens, because as a rider of Chapel Hill Transit, a frequent rider, while I may not be an expert, I can certainly visualize the various issues that might come about and how to potentially change those.
Okay, Amy?
I would disagree with DC. I think he is an expert on the transit system as a rider. And I think you are an expert if you live in town and you experience and you know it. So I think that expertise is important to bring to the boards. I also think for certain ones like the Design Commission and the Planning Board, it's important to have certain expertise represented there. So I don't think everybody needs to be an expert, but for instance, it's really helpful to have a design person or an architect on the Design Commission, or we have stormwater experts on the Planning Board now, we have transportation people. It's very helpful in shaping decisions and informing the board.
Okay, Amy, keep the mic. We're going to start with you and then go to DC and come back down here to George. And we're going to ask you, how can we increase bicycle safety and use to cut down on pollution and the increased use of autos? I think this is especially important since we are going to see population growth over the next 10 to 20 years. So go ahead, Amy.
Okay, I'm going to pass some of this to Ed because I know he likes to talk about the new bicycle plan, which is very exciting. Up at Central West, one thing that we've done is for a long time there's been kind of a hole in the middle part of town in our bicycle connections, and the committee has worked very hard to repair that hole and to make things that will connect from our greenways up and through the New Carolina North Campus and then down into the campus-to-campus connector. So I think all the future focus areas should be keeping in mind how we can improve that kind of connectivity and get safer and more convenient bicycle paths through town.